10:07. Thank you all for joining us this morning for what will end up being the final meeting of the Georgia Senate Special Committee on Elimination of Georgia's Income Tax. To get us started, I've asked Senator Watson if he doesn't mind leading us in invocation.
Okay.
Number 11.
Yep. Thank you. Let's pray. Dear Father, just thank you for this day. Thank you for all your many blessings, and just thank you for this time together. Thank you for this committee that has deliberated over the summer and made some decisions about how we move forward as our state. I just ask and pray that you be with our state as we enter into session, and just give all the folks coming and going safe travels, and just bless our state and lead and guide us as we go through this meeting and as we go through our 2026 session, and just lead and guide us and watch over us. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. All committee members should have a copy of the report. Senator Wirt, we'll let you get here before we get started. You only missed the prayer. Come on in. We can. If you want to come over here, we'll save you a spot over here.
You're to my right, man. First time for everything.
I don't know, that side looks fairly formidable over there. Hey.
Happy New Year. It's a safe place.
It is safe.
Happy New Year. How you doing, man?
I'm glad to see all of y'all.
Well, thanks to all the committee members, first for your work so far this session. This has not been an easy task. You know, this is something that we've worked on since 2018 pretty steadily, reducing Georgia's income tax burden. You also know that there was a plan laid out in 2010 to do the same thing that simply just was not able to coalesce with enough political will. Senator Harbison, come on up. What I do think we've been able to do is, working with you, hearing from testimony from across the country, develop a plan that really helps address affordability, allows all Georgia taxpayers to receive an income tax break, and the effect of it ends up eliminating the income tax, as you know, on individuals making $50,000, but also on families that we know are feeling the crunch of inflation right now, making $100,000 and less. Everyone gets a break, but the effect ends up being felt most by families making less than $100,000. Walk you back through some of the testimony we heard. As you remember at our first meeting, we laid out looking out what national trends were, where other states were. You saw from the it lays out here in the report, you saw from others that other states around us were moving towards zero. We already had two neighboring states that had hit zero, Tennessee and Florida. You had North Carolina and South Carolina, who had laid out plans to go to 2.99% on their state income tax. Georgia's had dropped from 6% due to Governor Kemp and Governor Dill's leadership down to 5.19%, where we had stalled out this year. But we still were being beat by competitive states. Mississippi, at the same time while we were discussing this, laid out a plan over 14 years to head to zero too. 9 states have already hit zero on their state income tax. The testimony we heard showed we're not an outlier to try to do the same to keep up with our other states. In the second and third hearings, you started to hear from citizens. You heard from a police officer, a police chief. You heard from a small family business. We actually met at a cafe in Gainesville to see how this income tax thing was affecting Georgia families. And the response was huge. It was, hey, we've got post-trained certified police officers living across state lines because they can make 5% more if they live and work in Tennessee, even though we know they grew up and went to high school in Georgia. We heard from healthcare workers who said the same thing, that it's a 5% raise for them to be in certain other states. And then you heard from small businesses who echoed that further. Based on that testimony, you heard us then turn and talk to Department of Revenue and our sources here in Georgia to say, if we make some moves, what makes the most sense? And for many, many years, what we have done, it's not a great analogy, it's kind of a silly analogy, but it's the best one I've got, so I'm going to share it again. If Georgia's income tax in total was a Subway sandwich, we've been eating at it from one side. We've been taking the 6% rate down to 5.39, 5.19. We think we'll go to 4.99. We've been eating from one side. The numbers showed, as we looked at the Department of Revenue records, that we could also eat that sandwich from the other side. If the goal was to make the sandwich, Georgia's tax rate burden, completely disappear, then it didn't matter which side we were eating from. The goal is zero. So we said, what happens if we start eating from that other side again? Acknowledging that right now Georgia families are feeling the burden of affordability. They're talking about how high their power bill is. They're talking about how much childcare costs, how much their grocery bill is. What can we do in this process to eliminate that Subway sandwich, their total tax burden, but maybe help on the bottom end a little bit faster? So we switched the model. We said, let's start eating from the other end. What we found out by doing that is while a 1% cut in the rate would be about $3 billion, using 2023 numbers to come from the bottom end up and exempt the first $50,000 of income for everybody would be about $3,000 as well. When we added those, $3 billion, sorry, did I say 3,000? Sorry, $3 billion. Thanks for catching me on that. Would be about $3 billion as well. So if we looked at it again and said, well, if we want to eliminate Georgia's income tax entirely, what have been the burdens in the past? And one of the burdens in the past has been pushing the plan so far out. If you push it out 14 years like Mississippi did, that's over 3 gubernatorial terms. If you can't get this done in 1 to 2 gubernatorial terms, then you're probably never going to be able to accomplish it. So what we did with your input is develop a plan that takes Georgia's income tax rate to 0 over a 6-year period, which means you have to bring out about $3 billion each year total. That's what this plan does. It looks, though, and says, instead of coming from the top end and eating that Subway sandwich from one side, let's come from the bottom side, too. Let's give breaks to families who are feeling the crunch the most first. It ends up giving a tax break to every single filer in Georgia, but the effect of it eliminates the income tax on individual filers making $50,000 and less and families filing jointly making $100,000 and less. If you make $101,000, you don't, it's not true that you see nothing. You only then are paying tax on $1,000 of income instead of $101,000 of income. The effect would be to put over $2,500 in the pocket of an individual making $50,000 right now. It would put $5,190 in a family making $100,000 right now filing jointly. That is real tax relief, and we can accomplish that in our first calendar year under this proposal. The proposal then rolls forward from there and says we've had triggers in place, triggers that talk about revenue estimates, talk about revenue coming in so that we make sure that we're not leaving the state where we can't fund the things that are necessary for government: roads, bridges, infrastructure, safety. And if those revenue estimates are still hit, then we would continue to roll down Georgia's income tax with an elimination date plotted for 2032. That's in 1.5 gubernatorial terms. It's not as quickly as 1 gubernatorial term, but it's much quicker than the plans we've seen laid out before that simply just didn't happen because of time. You have all been integral parts in creating this. Thank you for your input. I know that it's not a plan that everyone loves, but it is a plan that gives benefits first to hardworking families, and it's a plan that gives a benefit to every single working family here in Georgia. The big question was how you pay for it. Well, y'all have trusted me for years to look at the budget, and thank you for trusting me on that and giving me the opportunity here. The first year's cost is $3 billion. As you know, last year we ran almost a $2 billion surplus. In other words, we brought in more revenue than we needed to the tune of about $1.89 billion. The first part of that $3 billion in year one would be paid for. We think we should apply the money that people sent that was over what we needed towards paying for this plan. The second move, as you know, we have for years now cash funded our bond program. We know we're going to move back to a bond program as the rates start to fall. If we move back from the cash to bond program, that creates the last $1 billion needed for the $3 billion needed in Plan 1. We estimated the cost high on purpose, asked DOR to estimate everything against us because we do not want to use this plan to put Georgia in a position where it can't fund its priorities. In year 2, you would need an additional $3 billion. You still have the $3 billion from the year before. What this plan lays out and talks about in slight detail is the 205 pages of tax credits that we already have that exist here in Georgia. You know those total roughly $30 billion. If we are able to reduce or eliminate just 10% of those special interest credits, then we're able to give every family in Georgia a tax break, and 2/3 of them in Georgia would see a tax elimination. That's a deal I'm willing to make, and I think many of you on the committee feel the exact same way. That's the pay force. As it rolls out in year 3, we have seen and we have study after study from the Chicago School of Economics, among others, that say the multiplier effect of putting income in the hands of families who have to spend it is much higher than putting that income into the hands of families who do not have to spend it. We also know that the multiplier effect on income in the hands of families who have to spend it is much higher than the multiplier effect of putting it out as government spending. So we do believe that this is a fiscally sound, feasible plan that allows Georgia to keep up with its neighboring states, but also provide immediate relief to Georgia taxpayers and hardworking families making less than $100,000 while giving a break to everyone. That's the summary of the report. I'm happy to go through any details specifically. I'm also happy to open up the floor to questions or comments that may be made by each senator. Senator Walker.
Well, good morning. I'm excited about this plan, and I want to applaud the Lieutenant Governor for making it a priority of his, Lieutenant Governor Jones, to eliminate the state income tax burden on Georgians, and I think this is the right way to start that and to move in that direction. I think it, as you mentioned, the $3 billion is going to be turned right back into Georgia's economy, and not only is it going to help struggling families pay for child care and groceries and transportation, but it's going to be spent in our local communities, so it's going to help small business owners have more revenue. I think it's the right public policy. Folks are struggling, and this helps the people that are struggling the most first, and yet it helps all Georgians. So I'm fully supportive and appreciate your good work on this, Chairman, and all the committee.
Thank you, Pro Tem Walker. Just to reiterate what you said, I completely agree. What this does is gives a tax break for all Georgians, eliminating the income tax on families making $100,000 or less. Those are our teachers, our firemen, our police officers, nurses. It puts us at a position where businesses will be able to potentially pay for the raise next year. It's a 5% raise out of what the state's doing rather than having to take it out of their bottom line of business. I think this supports everyone and provides a way where we can combine our ideas with not only what the majority party is wanting to do, but also help out on the affordability issue that I know is important to all parties. Any other comments from any senator? Senator Huffstetler.
Yeah, thank you for your work as chairman on this and the committee's work on this. And I know you've got some history here as well, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. Since I did come in as finance chair in 2017, a lot of you guys move on to other positions. I found my level of incompetence, and I stayed right there. But we were able, at the time it was Jay Powell and myself, to put forth the first income tax rate cut since it had been put in the 1930s. We also doubled the standard deduction from $3,000 to $6,000, and then we came back a few years later and put in this incremental reduction as long as the revenue's there, I think in a very responsible way. We also, because we were going to a flat tax, unlike some other states that had seen some people actually get a tax increase, it was important to all of us that nobody got a tax increase. And so at that point, we quadrupled the standard deduction from $6,000 to $24,000 to make sure that everybody at the lower end got a tax cut. And I think this measure here is much in the same line. We're going to make sure, although everybody gets that $100,000, the bottom two-thirds, by not paying income tax, the thousands that will be in their pockets, they're the people who need it the most right now in this economy. And I think we're taking care of them with this in a responsible way. And as Chairman Tillery said, you know, we've done this without you know, I would say there's obviously going to be some revenue gained from putting this money back in people's pockets. We're not putting anything in there for that. We know it's going to happen. We're taking a very conservative approach in saying that while revenue is going to increase because of this, historically we've seen it, we're not even counting on that to make this work, that we're doing it in a responsible way. And I do think we've got to make sure that as part of this, is, as he said, is that we look at some of these tax credits, particularly ones that the studies say don't pay off. One of them I know back in 18 was 17 million. The next year it was 27 million. In 2020 it was 10 million. This year that started July 1st, it's going to be $625 million coming out. And I'm not even talking about the film tax credit. So we've got to look at these and see who do we want to get that money, the people who are struggling, or as the data would say, those that would do this business anyway. So I'm really excited about this and the work that's gone into it. I think that we're going to see some big benefits to Georgia, and to be able to say a year from now that 2/3 of the people in Georgia don't pay an income tax is a huge step, and I think we'll continue this bottom-up approach and move forward. I think we've maybe been a little bit slower and more cautious than some other states, but I think we've been very responsible, and I think this is a very responsible step as well. And again, I commend the chairman on all his work on this.
Any other comments? Senator Orrock? Senator Harbison? Whichever. Y'all both have seniority on each other, so I can't tell you which one goes first.
I know, that's a hard one to call.
The gentleman and my favorite Marine yields to the lady. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. The numbers in the report say that just a little bit under $4 billion would be the tax relief for those paying in the income level of $100,000 or less. But it's also true that the top 26% of the earners in the state from this get $11.5 billion of tax relief. Those at the top, those over $100,000 income, and that is kind of a remarkable thing to consider. It sounds like a good thing to relieve people of paying personal income tax $100,000 and under, but when you extend it to the entire universe of taxpayers, the top 26% get $11.5 billion of tax relief.
Senator, I know you got a text there. I can't tell you who did the math on it, but I
Well,
can tell
I
you.
can
Hang
tell
on.
you.
Well, here's why I look at that. It doesn't. The first year one costs $3 billion. That goes overwhelmingly to those making less than $100,000. Everyone gets a break. Year two costs $6 billion. $4 billion goes to those making less than $100,000. $2 billion goes to those making more than $100,000. I don't follow that line.
Well, when you lower the rate, when you continue to lower the rate.
Oh, the triggers that would be in FY 29 through 32. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so we're really sparing the wealthiest at the tune of $11.5 billion, compared to $3.5 or $4 billion for the ones that you described that are 100,000 and under.
I disagree with your math in the end, but I do think that the elimination on the front end of the $100,000 is in year one, families making less than $100,000 will see their income tax rate go to zero. I think it does make it very hard to. Well, every Georgian gets a tax break, and those under $100,000 see their taxes go to zero. I think it makes it hard to not support.
Well, if I could
Yes, ma'am.
continue with that, I'm keenly aware, and people across the state who are on these waiting lists for services, we have a lot of funding needs that things that are underfunded. And so this recommendation in the report also calls for a Tabor type of approach that Colorado did and had to back off of, and that is capping, the budget and refunding on an ongoing basis. How do we move to expand to fund the needs that we have across the state. Whole counties with like one little clinic, one doctor or no doctor, driving, an hour and a half to deliver a baby or to get services for a pregnant citizen. That's the question is, this report recommends capping the budget and continuing to tie our hands behind our back in terms of meeting the needs that we have in mental health. There's a long list. If we brought in the groups that advocate for folks with Alzheimer's, family members, folks with mental health needs, and these counties, these rural counties that are so bereft of medical services, as has been documented over and over and over. That's why it concerns me. The report concerns me on the capping the budget going forward.
Understood. Pro Tem Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Georgia has a long history of conservative budgeting, and because of our conservative leadership we've had over the last decade or longer, we were able to weather COVID in a strong fashion and come out of the other side of that in a good fiscal position, whereas a lot of other states are, dug themselves into huge holes of debt. And we will continue to be fiscally conservative in our budgeting and in our tax policy going forward. I'm confident of that. We're keenly aware that every dollar of taxes that we take in, income tax that we take in, we're taking it out of a Georgian's pocket, something they worked hard for. And we're very cognizant of that in the Republican caucus and the leadership, and we don't take that lightly. So we've been very good stewards and very conservative. Going forward, we don't know what 6 years is going to look like 6 years down the road, but we do know that this is something we can do right now to help people that are struggling to make ends meet, and it's an immediate relief that people are looking for. And what happens in 6 years, we may not any of us be here in 6 years.
That's right.
So I'm excited about this, and I fully support it, and I will make that in the form of a motion when the time's appropriate.
We'll take the motion now, and but I still will let comments from all the senators. Senator Anavitarte, and I apologize, Senator Harbison. I'll come back to you right afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo what Senator Walker said, I think, about this report. I think this report, the timing of it, and just kind of, it's another capstone, I think, of the work of Governor Kemp and this legislature to see personal income taxes go down at the rate that we've seen, as Chairman Huffstetler talked about, over the last many years. I would say respectfully to my friend from Atlanta, Senator Orrock, that, I hope this is not a moment in time where the Democrats are going to sit here and want to shout affordability in your TV commercials, but today we're going to vote against something that helps blue-collar, middle-class families that are seeking relief. I think the other thing, too, I think it's a little preposterous to compare the Georgia economy to Colorado. Colorado has tanked their economy. They've ruined their economy. They've legalized marijuana. We can get into a whole bunch of subjects about why crime has gone up and the other issues around Denver and parts of their city, including homelessness, which seems to be still an issue here in the city of Atlanta. But this is money that will go back into the pockets of Georgians that desperately need it. Well, at the same time, over the last few years, we've been providing property tax relief, teacher pay raises, and everything else. So I think when the public is asking us to be stewards of their money, not growing the size of government, I think this is just taking another step forward, I think, in the leadership of the Senate, the governor, and even in the House, to do what Georgians are demanding us to do, which is give them their money back to spend it how they want it. And I hear from both sides of the aisle in my district. I hear from Republicans, I hear from Democrats, is that I can't pay, insurance, health care, going to the doctor, copay, child care. I could create a list of things, going to get a basic oil change if they even have a car, which most people right now can't even afford a car. So to go back and give them, if they're a single filer, north of $2,500. That's a pretty significant amount of money for someone who's basically making ends meet right now to survive. So, I respectfully disagree with the minority party and hope that as this moves forward, we see a unanimous vote on the Senate floor when this bill hits the floor, Chairman Tillery. So I just want to say thank you to your work and the senators around this table.
Thank you. Senator Harbison and then Senator Dolezal.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me also thank the chairman and members of this committee for the great work you've done and you're doing right now. And I think you're putting forth an honest effort to solve the problem for all the citizens of Georgia. But the thing that I spoke of earlier about that $16 billion hole in the budget, how do you close it? I hear you're very logical and conservative budgeting. I knew, and I applaud you for that. We have been doing that. And I thought that we will continue down that road till we get to where by that method we were using then, as opposed to taking one giant step and doing it all in one fell swoop. You may be right. I hope you're right in the final analysis. But in this situation, what is bigger for me is that $16 billion budget. How are you going to do it? And you put forth things in here, I'm sure, that will solve that problem. But I'm just not. It's just giving me pause to say I'm not so sure about this. Let's continue on the mode we're using. Let's go forward the way we've been doing until we get to where we want to be incrementally, as opposed to that one big step. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to commend you and the committee for their work on this. This is a phenomenal plan. And what strikes me is that the goalposts keep moving, because the doom and gloom that we heard for the last few committee meetings was this is going to be a regressive tax. We're going to shift to a sales tax. The poor are going to have a disproportionate share. And we have brought forth a plan under your leadership to introduce a plan that keeps the state sales tax exactly where it is, ensures that the state is not going to raise any sort of property tax, which is a significant issue to homeowners all across the state. We're going to continue to spend the same amount of money per Georgian with allowing for inflation. And now the needle and the goalposts have moved. And now, even though we've brought a plan that is not regressive, that ensures there's no sales tax increase, that ensures there's no property tax increase. Now the concern is the ever unlimited amount of programs that we want to fund. So I would just say that if the answer for the Democrats in the coming out of the heels of record inflation in the state of Georgia, caused by inflationary policies adopted under the President Biden, if the answer to that is to not allow this multi-$1,000 tax increase for Georgians making less than $50,000 or $100,000, then rather than just bemoan what we brought forward, make an amendment to change the plan that we brought forward. But that won't happen. There will just be negative talking points. There won't be any real plan. There will just be talk against this plan. But this is a historic day for the state of Georgia. The income tax was adopted in 1929. And so we've been called radicals for wanting to do this, but we've existed longer as a state without an income tax than a state with one, and we're going back to where we started, which is not taxing income. And we're starting it by doing it for the Georgians who are most impacted by inflation. Let's get this thing passed, move it to the floor, and have a bright day here for all Georgians without doing the things that we were told we were going to have to do it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Any questions from any other senators? Senator Rhett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the committee and the chairperson for bringing this piece of legislation together. But I sit on the Finance Committee with Senator Hufstedler, and I think that the way right now, the way things are a little unstable coming out of Washington, we don't know which funds we have or which ones we won't. I think we should continue. I would urge us to continue the way we've been going in increments, whereas we get to 2026, we look and see what our income is like, match with our costs, and make sure we line up. And if that lines up, then we can lower it an increment. And I think so far that's been kind of working, but I just don't want us to get into a rush and find ourselves in a position whereas we don't have the income to match our cost, and then we have to go back to the drawing board. But I'd like to thank y'all for the opportunity of putting this bill together, and I think we should just continue to move in that manner.
If we were in an incremental, sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
If we're moving in an incremental mode, would you feel comfortable voting yes?
I'd have to look at the fine print.
Okay. Because the reason I bring that up is, Senators, I believe this is an incremental mode. We're not taking 16 billion to zero in 1 year. We're taking 16 billion to zero over 6 years. The 3 billion per year is how that breaks up. Rather than taking the 3 billion and reducing the rate from 499 to 399, which is what that would cost, we're saying instead, let's exempt the first $50,000 of income for individuals and the $100,000 of income for families. What that does is gives a tax break to every Georgian, with the effect of actually eliminating the income tax on folks making less than $50,000 if they're single, and on families making less than $100,000 if they're married and filing jointly. It is incremental. So I don't know how to answer the critique when the plan itself answers that critique. I love working with each one of you, but I do want to be clear. If you vote no to this plan, you are voting no to eliminating the income tax on individuals making $50,000 and families making $100,000, while giving a break to everyone else in 2027, in the first year we possibly can do it. I just want to make sure that's clear, that that's what happens if you were to vote no to this. I feel very comfortable voting yes to that proposal.
The deductions are hard to vote against.
Is there any other questions or comments? Senator Warwick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is true, am I not correct, that the top 26% of earners would get $11.5 billion of tax relief here?
It is true that the top 26% of earners pay $11.5 billion in taxes. That is true. So if we are making that tax rate burden go to zero in 2032, then yes, everyone's taxes are eliminated.
That's right.
But we're eliminating the taxes on those making $50,000 now and $100,000 as a family next year. This thing you're talking about that you've said that you don't think will ever follow through and do by 2032, that's the break to the top end earner. They get a break under this plan too.
They get a break. Well, what's their break under this plan?
The same as the family making $100,000. It's $5,190. The millionaire, the 10 millionaire gets the same break as the $100,000 earner under this plan. And if they're single, they get the same break as a $50,000 taxpayer. We literally took your critique and did everything you said. We did not raise the sales tax. We did not create a property tax. Did not put a tax on groceries. Made it be incremental. And we also tailored it towards inflation and hitting families who are feeling the affordability crunch the most. I can't say more than that. And I understand that may not change the opinions of the vote.
Right.
But I do want to make sure that it's clear for those who are listening and watching who care about this issue, who think that $5,000 in their pocket helps them pay their car bill. I want them to know where we stand when we vote on this bill. Yes, I want to go back
I
to
know
the
you
majority
wanna-
leader and then we'll move
I know
forward.
you want to wrap up, Chairman. I mean, I just want to make sure it's very starkly clear while our friends from the media are sitting here in this room that the minority party is wanting to figure out how do we keep all the government money to spend on new programs versus the majority party wanting to put the money back into the pockets of Georgians. Like, literally, that is what the first page of this recommendation and that little poster board sitting behind the chairman basically says. I know there's going to be some debate. We're going to hear talking points after this, from the minority party. This is to help the rich. This is not Washington, D.C. This is Georgia. So whoever's at the DNC writing your talking points, that doesn't apply here in this state. I think we need to make sure that's very clear. And I think the record of this economy in Georgia's economy has been the beacon and the anchor that's literally led America's economy across this country to keep it what it is under Governor Kemp, I think is very significant and should be noted in terms of this plan. So, I mean, I know once we leave this room, we're going to, hear all the back and forth and, the Democrats are going to try and find every single reason why to vote no. I hope they don't. And I hope we can figure out a way to, make this to where everybody gets to green. But that is literally what you're telling your citizens that literally live down the street from this Capitol, who are working hard, going to work, putting money in their pockets, trying to put food on the table, whether you're in Rockmart, Georgia, or inner city of Atlanta, 5 minutes from here. That is literally what we're about to take up and vote on.
The issue of affordability has been a buzzword since probably June or July. This is the first vote that we are going to get to take to address affordability. I would urge you to think about that and think about how you can continue to say that that's the number one issue if you don't support addressing it for Georgia families here. There's one more comment I want to make at the end. I saw some media reports on this yesterday. I know that a lot of people wanted to lay this out as a choice between income tax or property tax. For those of you watching, please know the state collects $0 in property tax right now. Your local governments and your local schools collect property tax. So we do not view this as an either or with the House. We view this as our proposal on what we think affects affordability, on what we think helps Georgia families. And we look forward to seeing their proposal on property taxes too. It is not an either or. The revenues go to completely different places. And the plan that we've drawn out with our state revenues to make this work are in no way impacted by anything they bring on property taxes that would relate to property tax revenue. So we don't think we're in a position where we're fighting the House. We look forward to working with them on the issues that they think are important to affordability. And we're sure they'll take our ideas up as serious as addressing affordability as well. Mr. Pro Tem, I think you made a motion.
Chairman, I'd like.
Oh, yeah, Senator Gooch.
Quick question, comment. Thank you. As you've already heard from other members, thank you.
I didn't have your mic on. I apologize. Go ahead.
Number 3, there you go. Thank you for all your leadership on this, and committee members for all the hours that's been put into it, and the Lieutenant Governor's, his leadership as well. This is important to our state, but I'd want to ask a question to make sure people understand this is a study committee recommendation. We do not have a piece of legislation to vote on today. That'll come later. Within the next few weeks, I'm assuming there'll be a bill drafted and introduced. But just to make sure the world knows, we are not lowering the current exemption for seniors. Currently, we've exempted seniors at the age of 65 and older for the first $60,000 or $65,000 in income. That was passed back in 2012. Right. We're not lowering that number. That'll stay the same. Is that correct?
It would actually go higher. If they're married, they'll now have $100,000.
So it was already $130,000
for their, if they get to claim both as they're married and filed jointly.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not talking about messing with any of those.
So I just want to make sure we're clear.
But if they were,
and also. Veterans, we passed the veterans exemption this past year. We're not lowering that number either.
What you're looking at doing here, especially if they were single, or if they were married rather, and they did not have income coming in from their spouse, they would actually see an increase.
Right. One last question. The 10% reduction on the sales tax and credits, I think there's a lot of interest in the room to eliminate a lot of those credits entirely. The 10%, is that across the board for every tax credit, or is that going to have to be decided one-on-one?
Yeah, the bill lays out and shows that 10%, you only have to take 10% of what's laying out there to make this plan work.
So you could
it could be
one or two of those.
You could eliminate one or two.
Okay.
You could curb two to four. You've got $30 billion out there that we're now giving in special interest credits. What this does set up is a reduction of 10% in special interest credits in order to give 100% of Georgians a tax cut and 64% of Georgians a tax elimination.
Right. One last thing, I would like to also make sure we don't lose sight of the need to constantly look for ways to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. We've seen some stories recently in Minnesota and other states where there's some significant fraud. I hope that's not occurring in the state of Georgia. Yeah. We need to look for ways to reduce the size of our government, get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse, and lower the costs of government to our citizens, as well as lowering the income tax. So I applaud you for what we're doing. let's move forward with the bill and see where we go from here.
Well, you opened up, we tried to keep it narrow, but since you opened up that question about waste, fraud, and abuse, you're obviously talking about the Minnesota child care instance. I do want to say that our committee actually dove off into that too to make sure that that wasn't an avenue that we could find revenue to further reduce state income taxes. And what we found through working with Amy Jacobs at DECAL is that one of the reasons Minnesota had a few things that went wrong. They did not inspect the facility before this facility was opened. They did not do random inspections of the facilities, and they paid up front. Georgia does none of those things. For those of you listening, Georgia continued its random inspections of facilities twice a year, even during COVID. Although we were encouraged heavily not to, we kept that up, and we also pay in arrears. In other words, the child has to be in the facility, the parent in the facility have to sign off. There is a process in place that checks to make sure that that name of that child doesn't appear on any other roll, so there's not double paying before Georgia even issues a check back. We've been encouraged for years to try to pay up front. Of course, child care and placing institutions wish that we would do that, but we do not do that simply so we do not run into that Minnesota fraud that I appreciate you brought up, Senator Gooch. We had a subset of this committee that dove into that in December, and I wanted to make sure that the public as a large knew that. Can't promise you our system's perfect, but I do want you to know about the processes we put in place to make sure that we did not see a similar situation there, and those were put into place by Governor Deal and by Governor Kemp.
Thank you.
I think we've exhausted the questions. There's been a motion, I think, by the pro tem. And you have another question, Senator?
Thank you. Let me just express further my concerns about this. We heard no information in the course of this committee's hearings on the impact of the cuts in Washington that are coming down that will hit our budget. We heard nothing about that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was not factored in to looking at the financial posture that we're in as a state. We're going to have needs that can be documented, should have been documented, how the cuts in Washington are going to hit our state budget, and call on us to look for the resources to replace some of those holes that are going to be created. We have a housing crisis. We're not sailing along with clear skies ahead. We have a housing crisis. It's not related. It's not strictly Georgia, but we definitely have a homelessness issue. We have mental health needs. We have education needs, and pulling out a banner that we're going to cut people's taxes does not reflect the fact that an individual cannot take that tax refund and build a mental health system that they have needs for in their family, or improve their schools, address the education needs, higher education. We're underfunding. Right now, we don't cover all the kids in the state with the pre-K program. We have holes. We're not fully staffing our agencies. We've had extensive, over the course of the last few years, heard about our workforce challenges. And so we are not in the clear in terms of having that we have no needs that we need to be funding. We need more robust funding in these areas and other areas. And so it flies under the banner of tax cuts for people under $100,000, but it doesn't address the very real budget needs that we have, and that are going to increase when these cuts come from Washington. And they're already starting. When people's insurance health insurance is going to go up 2 and 3 times. That's what we're going to be hearing, and that individual. That's why I don't see this as a path forward that addresses the needs that Georgians have.
Oh, yes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Let me say one thing, Mr. President. I'm sorry. I consider this to be a well-established committee that was established to take a serious look at the budget, at the tax process here, and I think we're doing that. And I don't think anyone here, not in my estimation, look upon this as being a Democratic or Republican effort. I think that everybody here had an honest perspective regarding the people they represent and the issues they represent. So I just want to make sure that that is taken out of the equation, because everybody has a perspective, and it's based on what they perceive to be how this could affect them. Now, if there's a bill come out, and these deductions especially, that's a hard thing to vote against if you're going to vote against it, because it's a good perspective. But there are other things that you have to look at to say that outweighs that perspective until we get to a bill maybe that will compartmentalize this into a better format that would suit that particular individual. And that's my perspective on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion, and I've let discussion go further. There has not been a second. You want to make a second, Mr. Leader? Thank you. So we're in discussion, but we have been for 45 minutes, so thank you, Senator. Any other comments or questions? We've got a motion and a second on the floor. I want to ask the pro tem if he doesn't mind just restating the motion, because it's been a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I move that we approve the final report and recommendations of the Georgia Senate Special Committee on the Elimination of Georgia's Income Tax.
There's a motion. Do you still feel comfortable making the second?
Absolutely.
Second from Senator Anna Vitarte. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the proposal, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
All right, let's do a roll call. I'll call it. Senator Anna Vitarte?
Aye.
Senator Dolezal?
Aye.
Senator Harbison?
No.
Senator Huffstetler?
Aye.
Senator Gooch?
Yes.
Senator Orrock?
No.
Senator Rhett? Senator Walker?
Aye.
Senator Watson? I think the passes 6-3. I would vote yes if I had to vote, and so the motion stands. The motion carries. Thank you for your time today. We have no other business, and we stand adjourned.
Thank you.